welcome back to La Pausa, a Pints and Punditry podcast here at the Pitchside Pub, episode 22, coming to you on April 22nd. And yeah, we had our domestic leagues over the weekend and saw some good action. We had a Classico, Leverkusen stayed undefeated, but since we've done our last episode, we had some crazy occurrences in the European leagues, the end of the Bundesliga's Farmer League status, the end of English domination across Europe. And if you can't tell, I'm being sarcastic as hell because all of this is being blown way out of proportion, and I'm going to tell you why here on La Pausa. But before we get into it, hit that subscribe button for me down below so you can follow the channel. Get in that comment section. Tell me what you think about Man City getting knocked out, about Arsenal getting knocked out, about Borussia Dortmund still being alive in the Champions League, and all of the other things that are taking place across Europe. I want to hear your comments. Let me know what you think. Follow us on Twitter at Pitchside Pub. You can chime your comments in on there as well. And if you haven't already, go check out the website, pitchsidepub.com. So, of course, Manchester City loses to Real Madrid, and Arsenal loses to Bayern Munich. And, you know, Bundesliga, the league itself, is actually having some fun with this, as are its fans and its players. And rightly so. Listen, I am not a English dominance diehard, and everything else is a Farmers League. And I don't like that Farmers League title for the Bundesliga. I think it is wildly disparaging because, as I've said before on a number of different occasions, I love the Bundesliga. I think it's great football. It's one of the top leagues in the world, and it's great competition. And I don't ever want to disparage it. It has been disparaged, and it does get a bad rap. Even not being on par, not being considered on par with Serie A in Italy or La Liga in Spain. And frankly, I think the Bundesliga might be better top to bottom than La Liga right now. But it does get a bad rap. And so when you see Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund continue to advance to the semifinals of the Champions League, you know what? Bundesliga and players and fans, you've earned your day in the sun to have a little fun and to fly your flag and to take your shots back at everybody who has said that it can't sniff the Premier League for years. That said, as always in these situations, the truth is somewhere in the middle. And if over the years in your defense of the Bundesliga, your argument has been that the top teams, particularly Bayern Munich, can't compete with the top teams in other leagues. Real Madrid, Barcelona, Manchester City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Inter Milan. If someone's telling you that they can't compete with those clubs, then you're arguing with the wrong person, right? Because that's a given. Bayern Munich is not some plucky upstart that knocked off the big bad Arsenal. Right? They are one of the wealthiest and most talented clubs in the world. They are having a down year for them in that they did not win their league for the first time in a decade, and they're being managed by Thomas Tuchel, who's just a hand grenade waiting to go off at any time. But it's still Bayern Munich, and they still have tons of talent. They still have tons of money. So at no point has anybody with any sanity argued that they, and even your Borussia Dortmunds, aren't on par with the top clubs in other leagues. That's a poor argument. That's not one I've even heard a lot. And if that's the defense you've had to come to over the years, you're arguing with the wrong people, right? That is not why England is better than Germany in terms of the quality of their domestic league, right? The Premier League is not better than the Bundesliga because Manchester City and Arsenal and Liverpool, the three best teams this year, are significantly better than Bayern Munich, right? Or in this year's case, Bayer Leverkusen, but historically. That is not the argument. The argument is in the rest of the league. The argument is in the depth. And you really don't have to look a whole lot further than money. And money is not the end-all be-all. And we've seen very wealthy clubs with tons of money make terrible decisions and not be competitive. Chelsea's done it recently. Newcastle has taken a step back despite their spending. Barcelona's spending got them on the verge of bankruptcy. And so you can be successful without it. Brighton is a great example, and there are some other good examples of clubs who have done well on limited budgets. So money is not the end-all be-all, but it is a great indicator. It is very indicative of success and of depth. And we need to look no further than the Europa Conference League, where West Ham won last year and Aston Villa is making a run this year. And those are teams in that second tier, we'll call it, of English Premier League clubs, right? They're not the top-level dominance, but they're in that next tier of good quality clubs. But they have so much more money than the clubs they're competing against in that Europa Conference League, that third-tier European tournament. And so, of course, they're making a run. And I don't know if Aston Villa is going to win it or not, but of course they're making a deep run in this tournament. And of course West Ham did last year. How could they not? How could they not? And you need look no further than the overall wage budgets of the leagues. The Bundesliga's overall wage budget is around $90 million, right? $90 million across all the teams, all the players. For the Premier League, it's $1.8 billion. It's double. It's double. So we're not even close. So you need look no further than that. And it's not the top clubs. Again, Bayern Munich can spend with anybody, right? Because they generate so much revenue. They have so much marketing might and power that they're allowed to spend so much more. But it's the clubs down on the bottom levels, the mid to bottom tier clubs in each league. The Premier League only has 4 clubs that have a wage bill, an annual wage bill for their players of under £50 million or euros. So they've only got 4 clubs that are under 50. You know what the Bundesliga has? 13. 13 clubs are under that 50 million level, right? So that's just so much less depth in the league, which means when you've got those games on a weekend against a lower table team in your league, it's just not nearly as much of a challenge. You don't have to have the depth. You can afford to rotate players more easily. You just aren't as mentally challenged or physically taxed on those weekends so that when you go play midweek in the Champions League, you're a little more refreshed. Now, I'm not saying that's why they won. Borussia Dortmund went out and won their games. Bayern Munich went out and won their games. Real Madrid went out and won their games. And this applies to La Liga too. The bottom of the table La Liga teams are just simply not that good. They're just really not that good. Same as the bottom level Bundesliga teams. That's where the talent drops off. Once you get below mid-table, the talent really drops off. In the Premier League, and I said this last week when I said it's not over and Manchester City has a lot of hurdles that they still have to overcome. The Premier League is so deep, that outside of maybe 3 or 4 teams, you can get beat any weekend, any day, any given time. And that's just not the case in these other leagues. It happens so infrequently that Real Madrid is beaten by a relegation team in La Liga, or Bayern Munich, or in this case Bayer Leverkusen this year, who hasn't been beaten by anybody, gets beat by a relegation level team. Whereas in the Premier League, Manchester City dropped points this year against Crystal Palace, who's sitting in like 16th. They're way down the table. And Wolves are not a relegation team this year, but they're not anything crazy, and they beat Manchester City. And Liverpool and Arsenal have both dropped points in their title races to these lower of the table teams. And so it's just simply it's deeper. It's deeper. And that's where the dominance is. The fact that Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund are making a deep run in the Champions League and all the English teams are out. Listen, celebrate it. Celebrate it. You deserve it. And the on-field product is showing us, who's having a better year this year. But it does not change the fact that the Premier League is the best league in the world and that they are a stronger league and that, frankly, it's not that close. It's not that close. There is still a sizable gap between the Premier League and Serie A and La Liga and the Bundesliga in terms of overall quality and depth. Again, I'm not talking about the top. The tops of every league are good, right? On any given day, Real Madrid can beat any Premier League team. Bayern Munich can beat any Premier League team. Bayer Leverkusen this year could absolutely compete for a Premier League title. Would they win it? I don't know. But they would be the 4th team in that current 3-team race. I truly believe if you put Bayer Leverkusen in the Premier League this season, if they had been in the Premier League all season and played the way they did in the Bundesliga, that we would have a 4-team race, not a 3-team race. And I don't know exactly where they would come on top, but they would not be in that next level with Villa and Tottenham and Manchester United and basically everybody in that 4 to 7 range. I don't think they'd be there. I think they'd be closer to City, Liverpool, and Arsenal because they are that level. So it's not about what the best teams can do. It's about what the entire league can do. And that's where there's a massive gap. So, hey, congratulations to Bayern and to Borussia Dortmund, who, I will say, got a very easy path through and is part of why I hate the draw and I would like to see seeding in these tournaments. The fact that either, and this is not bitter, this is not sour grapes because City lost, because I said this long before I knew what the draws were. I said this months ago in some previous videos about how things I would change about the Champions League. I hate the draw. I hate the random draw. That Manchester City, Real Madrid quarterfinal double leg match was incredible, and it was worthy of a final. And for those two to meet, and I would be saying the same thing if City had won. By the way, I don't like it. I think it doesn't lead to the best end result in terms of determining who the best team in this competition was. Manchester City absolutely played well enough to move on, as did Real Madrid, but they couldn't because they're playing each other. That's worthy of a final, or at the very least a semifinal. Meanwhile, you've got Borussia Dortmund and Atletico Madrid, who, again, two good teams, but they were clearly, somewhere in the 5 to 8 range of the 8 teams that were remaining, depending on how you rate everybody. Whereas Manchester City and Real Madrid were probably 1 and 2 that were left. And so I don't love that. But, hey, credit where it's due. You got to beat who's in front of you, and Borussia Dortmund took care of their business. So, listen, have your fun, take your shots, and enjoy this while you have it, German football fans. I'm in favor of it. I love your league. I love the Bundesliga. I love the players that come out of it. I don't want it to be a developmental league. I would like teams to be able to keep their players. I did a whole video last week on Bayer Leverkusen holding on to their players and the influx of money they're going to receive from winning the Bundesliga. And is that going to be enough to hold on to some of your young stars and make another run at this thing? I hope they do. I genuinely do root for that. But a couple of wins by a couple of your powerhouse teams over a couple other powerhouse teams, and the fact that Bayern Munich beat Arsenal does not in any way mean that the Premier League is no longer the premier competition in all of Europe. It is still the Premier League, and then it's those 3 in some order, just a tier below them. And that gap is going to continue to be there as long as the money is there, and as long as the Premier League has incredible financial strength. Now, I don't think the top teams are going to pull away. I don't think they can spend a whole lot more than they already have. I think they are mostly tapped out across England and Germany. But it's that second level of Premier League teams that really creates that gulf. They are just wealthier and deeper and more talented than the mid-tier teams in the Bundesliga and in La Liga and in Serie A. And a couple of wins by the top teams does not change that. But I could be wrong, and if I am, I would like you to tell me. So get down in that comment section. What do you think? Is this the end of English dominance? Is Bayern Munich making a statement? If so, why didn't they make it during the Bundesliga season when they came in second? But I'd love to hear your comments. Get down in that comment section for me. Hit us up on Twitter at PitchsidePub. You can yell at me on there as well. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on this video so you can follow the channel and see all the content. We're putting out a lot of content this time of year, and we're really excited about it. And, of course, if you haven't already, check out our website, pitchsidepub.com. Thanks, as always, for joining us on La Pausa, a Pints and Punditry podcast here at the Pitchside Pub.